I'm David Denault.
And I'm John Gomez. Join us for part 2 of our series on UFOs, aliens, and abductions.
This is a special report from About Space Today.
Thanks for taking time to join us today. I'm David Denault, and the question today is, are we ready to meet E.T.? Well, today on Special Report, we'll share some stories and let you decide for yourselves. John, what do you think? Are we ready to meet E.T.?
Well, David, that's a fantastic question. I think it really comes down to it's 50-50. I think that there is a large segment of our population, and I use that term loosely. What I mean is here in the U.S., but I think there's a large portion of our population that is saying, hey, we're ready. We can handle this. We know kind of what to expect, or we prepared ourselves mentally. Unfortunately, there's another segment of our population that is probably overwhelmed, probably scared, nervous. That's concerning because I think one of the big drawbacks to disclosure of anything about, non-human intelligence or non-human technology could go one of two ways. You're either going to have a celebration, people are going to be excited, they're going to want to know more, or you're going to see the worst of society. People are going to start looting and rioting because they don't know how to process what they're seeing. And they may say, well, they're here to conquer us, so what does it matter anyway? When in reality, if you can go as far as they've gone, for as long as they've gone, there's a pretty good chance that they're not here in a hostile capacity, more in an overseer or guiding capacity.
We're actually studying whale sounds and how they might relate to alien language. Scientists may have just had their first conversation with whales while testing software that could one day help them communicate with aliens. A team of scientists from the SETI Institute, the University of California, Davis, and the Alaska Whale Foundation are studying humpback whale communications off the coast of Alaska when they detected the underwater greeting signal from a whale they call Twain. Deborah Bird of Earth Sky reports.
On December 12, 2023, scientists from the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California, described their close encounter with a humpback whale. You might think of SETI research as looking skyward for extraterrestrial intelligence. But there's a whale SETI team now, too. It's been looking toward Earth's oceans, studying the way humpback whales communicate. The SETI team wants to develop what it calls intelligence filters to use in the event that an extraterrestrial intelligence would try to communicate with humans. And the team said on December 12th that it had a big recent breakthrough with a humpback called Twain. Twain heard the recording, then approached and circled the team's boat, and Twain talked back, responding in a conversational style to the whale greeting signal. In all, the exchange lasted 20 minutes. The whale, Twain, responded to each playback call and matched the interval variations between each signal. Research leader Brenda McCowan of UC Davis said, "We believe this is the first such exchange between humans and humpback whales in the humpback language." The whale SETI scientists said they'd continue to study whale communication with the goal of someday deciphering messages.
So what I use, I head up a group that's supplying one-day information carried to humpback whales, because they have kind of a global communication system already. NASA started an astrobiology program, and they said, we're going to use Antarctica as a proxy for Mars. And so they use Antarctica as a proxy for Mars. So I thought, why aren't we using other communication systems on Earth that are non-human, like humpback whales, as a proxy for an extraterrestrial signal? And kind of a natural extrapolation of the astrobiology program is studying non-human communication systems. And of course, humpback whales are the most gregarious marine mammals we know of, and they do transmit over large distances. And they use tools. They build nets of bubbles to catch herring. And also many ways, they are a perfect candidate to try out detection of a non-terrestrial, namely aquatic signal.
Since the dawn of mankind, we have asked, are we alone? Well, I want to take us back to 1954 and the disappearance of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. President Dwight D. Eisenhower is on a winter break, and in the middle of the night, he mysteriously disappears.
When you're president of the United States, we should know where you are at all times. But this one evening, in February of 1954, Eisenhower just goes missing. To the point where the Associated Press put out a wire saying he died. He died in the middle of the night. And then 2 minutes later, they retracted it and said, no, our mistake. And the next morning, he shows up at church. So something happened in the middle of that night that is obviously off the books, unexplained, and really strange.
And where was President Eisenhower during the time he disappeared? Well, some accounts say he had a very unusual meeting.
There's a story that on February 20th, 1954, President Eisenhower had a meeting with extraterrestrials. This took place at an airbase. Eisenhower was presumably asked to renounce and give up nuclear weapons. And in exchange, the extraterrestrials would give the US technology which would change the world. The story is that Eisenhower turned down this deal because he couldn't be sure that the Soviets would do the same.
True or not, it's becoming more and more difficult to conceal what might have taken place, since Edwards Air Force Base is not that far from Palm Springs. What if that really occurred? But even stranger is the Malmstrom Air Force Base UFO incident in Montana, involving a UFO sighting and an unexpected shutdown of the entire nuclear missile system. It's reported to have occurred on March 24th, 1967. The retired Air Force captain and nuclear crew commander Robert Salas, who was at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana, who came forward about a UFO taking control of the entire missile system.
Sometime in the evening hours, I get up a call from the main guard upstairs. He tells me that there are strange lights flying over the facility. They're looking at reddish-orange, glowing, pulsating light that's hovering just above the front gate. They did think that there was a solid object within the light, sort of oval-shaped. I kind of dismissed it. I even said, "You mean like UFOs?" and kind of laughed. And then he said, "Well, they're not airplanes, sir." About 5 minutes later, he calls back and he's screaming into the phone. Now, he's very frightened. He's babbling. He says he's got all the guards out there with their weapons drawn. They wanted orders on what to do. I told them, make sure nothing enters the fenced area. When I hung up the phone, I thought we were under attack. By who or what, I had no idea. And then we get bells and whistles going off at our control panel, and we could see the lights going from green to red all across the board, meaning that the missiles were inoperable now.
If the president had given the order to launch the missiles, we could not have launched them.
David, it was such an interesting event, and the more I've looked into it, the more interesting it becomes. But I think one of the highlights of that incident is the after action reporting and the highlights of those reports. The Air Force blew it off and just said, well, it may have been an electromagnetic pulse, or maybe there was some unidentified natural phenomenon that could have taken place that caused this. They insisted, the Air Force did, that there was no extraterrestrial connection and just that it was just a malfunction. So it's a matter of, what do we believe? Do we believe that's possible? I think it's certainly possible. I think that a non-earthly intelligence with non-earth technology would have the ability to come to this planet, monitor our society, see kind of the decisions that our leaders make, And maybe they felt like at that moment it was the best time to, for lack of a better word, intrude on the way we do things. And they decided unilaterally, these missiles are not going to work anymore. You're not going to destroy yourselves. So there's hope in that, that if that was the case, maybe they're helping us stop our own destruction. But on the other side, it's, well, what if they're just doing that to America and not other dangerous?
Russia did have a similar incident. And in Russia, they turned, instead of turning them off, they turned the missiles on and are ready to fire.
Interesting.
Well, today whistleblowers are coming forward as the truth is out there. First, a retired Navy commander who says UFOs are real. You might remember the congressional hearings recently with sworn testimony from David Grush that we have recovered alien spacecraft and bodies. A retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral has come forward and tells Russ Cohart of News Nation he believes whistleblower David Grush's claims of a secret UFO retrieval program run by the Pentagon is real.
Tim Gallaudet has spent a career serving his country. First in the Navy, working in areas like aircraft carrier combat operations and assisting Navy SEAL teams during counter-terrorism operations. Tim, you've said publicly that you think UFOs, UAPs, are the story of the century. Now, I happen to agree with you, but why do you say that?
Oh, absolutely. We're being visited by non-human intelligence with technology we really don't understand, and with intentions we don't understand at all either. And this is just one of those great big questions. Are we alone or not? And we're learning we're not.
Now, that really does surprise me to hear that from a former very high-ranking flag officer in the US Navy, to actually say you're stating categorically that you believe NHI, non-human intelligence, are real.
Absolutely, I do.
Why do you say that?
Well, for a number of reasons that have been coming out. Congress has been informed, and they've drafted legislation, and they've passed legislation, for example, to establish a DoD office to look at it. They did the same. NASA did the same with a UAP study team. And we know from the UAP hearing this summer that there are crash retrieval programs. And I have 100% confidence that the testimony by David Grush and the other witnesses is accurate.
Wow. That's a big thing for you to say that, isn't it?
It is. It is astonishing. And that's why I wrote that article in The Hill. I don't understand why more people are not interested in this. I mystify the lack of intellectual curiosity.
The problem, Tim, is that a lot of the government is still in absolute denial. I mean, you talk as a fact about a crash retrieval program, and we're talking here about retrieved non-human technology, aren't we?
Yes. And so what you have going on right now are, again, legacy classified programs, special access programs, and without congressional direction and White House policy, that's not going to change. And
it might be decided by very senior people in the Defense Department that we shouldn't reveal technology because it's a weapon, a potential weapon. It's a potential advantage in a future war. You can understand that, can't you?
Absolutely. I think some of the technology should remain classified. We don't want it to get in the hands of our adversaries. However, the fact that we're being visited by non-human intelligence, that is what I think needs to be disclosed. Now, granted, it's not an easy thing for a government to do, because then they're going to admit that they don't really know what they are or their intentions, and it makes us look vulnerable. True. But I think as a society, we're ready for this. We've turned that corner.
And Nick Pope, a former British intelligence official, also asked.
And so what we've seen is this subject increasingly moving out of the fringe and into the mainstream, which makes me wonder, what is it they're not telling us? The president, particularly in his capacity as commander-in-chief, can make that call. And maybe we will see it one day soon. My fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone.
Russ Coulthart recently says he knows the location of a UFO so large it can't be moved.
People are going to question what I'm about to say. What if some of that shit is so big it can't be moved?
Is that what you're saying, Ross? Is that what you've been told?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Big. So big they built a building over it in a country outside of the United States of America. I know that sounds preposterous, and I know, oh my God, you can just hear them now, the bleating debunkers. let's see this investigated. There's a whole cadre of supposed experts on social media who are saying it can't be, therefore it isn't. And that's been the default for so many years. It can't be, therefore it isn't. Imagine if what Mr. Grush is saying is true.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin.
Think about the implications of that. Some of these objects are not capable of being moved because they're too bloody big. Let me just tell you this. I know exactly where it is. It's absolutely gobsmacking that it's being kept as a secret. Imagine having an object that's so big, it's just not conceivable to move it.
Well, David, I'm not sure what you think. I think one of the concerning things, and it really amazed me when I looked into this, is that, for lack of a better term, the world is not prepared for ET visits. There is no established protocol in place that the public is aware of that we would essentially follow if we were to receive visitors from another planet.
Well, after last week's program on UFOs over Canada, I began to wonder if there are any alien protocols in existence. Well, our research team searched and found, quote, "There are no international agreements or mechanisms in place of how humanity would handle an encounter with extraterrestrial intelligence," end quote, says Nicholas Hedman, the executive director of the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. The first Outer Space Treaty was signed through the UN in 1967 by the UK, the Soviet Union, and the US in response to the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles, which could reach targets in space, and it now serves as the basis for all existing space law. Now, all 5 of the major space treaties, which now cover everything from prohibition of weapons through the liability of damage and debris from spacefaring nations, they all center around what humans do in space and how this affects other humans. But what if the message NASA sent into deep space was intercepted, and they sent a message back to us? Science Podcast developed a hypothetical scenario of the first contact from intelligent aliens.
It is a crisp fall morning. We're waking up, getting ready for work, school, even regretting a long night. Just everyday life. Only today, for 7 billion people, the definition of life itself will change. It's a signal from the cosmos. A message that answers the most profound question we as a species have ever asked. Are we alone?
A signal from an extraterrestrial would be like a knock on the door on a dark night when you're not expecting anyone.
It'd not only be the coolest thing that ever happened, it'd be the most profound discovery in the history of science, in the history of what it is to be human.
There would be history before this stunning discovery, and then history afterwards.
The effect is going to be to change our civilization completely. It's back to the drawing board for all of us.
But if this is a signal from another world, who in the universe is sending it?
It's generally assumed that if we pick up a signal, it's coming from a society that's more advanced than ours. Now, why is that? Couldn't there be aliens that are less advanced? Well, of course, but they're not building powerful radio transmitters. So if they're not at least at our technological level, we won't hear from them.
We've only had technology for 100 years. That's 100 years out of the history of the galaxy that's 10 billion years old. Any signal that we detect is going to be coming from an older civilization. I'm talking in the hundreds of thousands of years.
All radio waves travel at the speed of light. In a vast universe, a signal from the middle of the Milky Way would take over 26,000 years to get here, which means whoever sent it is either long gone or way more advanced than anything we could imagine. In the clock of the cosmos, we've only been around for a millisecond.
SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and it's the most audacious program to date in terms of looking for extraterrestrials and seeing if they actually exist.
Dozens of minds working to understand billions of years of evolutionary history, examining how life on our world went from chemistry to biology in order to learn if it happened anywhere else. Leading the charge is SETI Director Jill Tarter.
More than 150 people work at the SETI Institute. They're astronomers, they're biologists, they're chemists, they're geologists.
When we turn our antennas in the direction of some nearby star system that we think might have a planet with intelligent life on it,
we're trying to find evidence of someone else's technology. We're looking for signals that we don't think nature can produce.
After half a century of listening and thousands of years of wondering, an extraterrestrial transmission has been picked up. Almost instantly, the news goes viral. It's a field day for skeptics, beginning as more news of the weird than news of the millennia. But this time, it's real. And we only know that we're on the precipice of a new universe.
The signal isn't coming to California, to the Allen Telescope Array, or to the SETI Institute, or even to the United States. The signal's coming to the whole planet. The information is the property of humankind.
World governments or militaries might seek to control the information, but there would be no way to stop it. The public already knows.
I think if we caught a strong extraterrestrial signal, people would freak out. I think it would be a good freak out in a lot of ways, but there'd be some bad stuff to go with it.
And once a channel to the cosmos were opened up, there would be no going back. Weeks after receiving a message from an alien civilization, astronomers and analysts are slowly revealing its meaning. World leaders are reopening a conversation they haven't had in a long time.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Technology may be our greatest triumph, but it could also be our undoing. With a changing climate, overpopulation, and the threat of nuclear annihilation. Indeed, the very fact that an advanced civilization even sent a message may be the most valuable thing we learn from it.
I don't expect that a signal is going to solve all our problems. I think we're going to have to solve those problems because we've created them. But the fact that we know it's possible somehow to survive the technological adolescence that we find ourselves in, I think that's a really important message.
2.5 months ago, the people of Earth received a transmission that answered one of humanity's oldest questions. Are we alone? Just as the people of Earth are starting to get used to the idea of someone else out there, far away, another message arrives. And on this transmission, they're talking. The aliens have sent us a jumble of phrases, and it doesn't take long for SETI researchers to recognize them. They're ours. It is a remix of greetings recorded and sent out on the Voyager spacecraft in 1977. In English.
Hello, children of Earth.
In ancient Greek. We come. And finally, in Indonesian.
Selamat malam hadirin sekalian. Selamat berpisah.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. They have used our own words to engineer a message to us. They've been studying us. They not only see us, they not only know us, they are on their way. And they aren't far.
The Voyager 1 spacecraft, it's about to journey into the interstellar medium, the distance between the stars. It's at the edge of the solar system.
They're not light years away, on the other edge of the galaxy. They're in our own backyard.
The idea that if they were coming closer to us, then we were going to have an actual confrontation or a meeting. I think at that point, the inescapability of day by day, they're closer, it would galvanize us.
Look, if we were to find something in our own solar system coming our way, you might as well sit back and have a nice drink, because there's not much you can do about it. And whatever they have in mind to do, they're probably going to be able to do it, because after all, they managed to make it this far.
Let's say you're an alien species and you're benevolent, you don't want to cause us any harm. You're looking for the right moment to come say hi. Where is that point? If you're a completely moral species, maybe you don't want to do it until you know that people aren't going to freak out and panic and kill themselves and have doomsday cults, that kind of stuff. You don't want to interfere with a culture that's still trying to get their own way forward.
You can wonder if we're ready for contact. If you ask me, the answer is simple. No, we're not ready. We're not ready to communicate with each other. We can't solve our own problems.
But the people of Earth, with all of their imperfections, may not have a choice in the matter. We are about to come face to face with beings from another planet. Whether we're ready for them or not, they're coming.
A hypothetical scenario. It almost sounded real. And one day you might hear those words. They are coming. And we don't have protocols for an alien visit.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to Special Report. If you liked this episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And make sure you join us next week for Part 3, Roswell and more. For David Denault, I'm John Gomez, and you've been listening to Special Report.
This has been a special report from About Space Today.